A people disconnected from their roots can be controlled by the branches of another civilization. Africa's greatest wealth was never only in the ground, but in the wisdom buried in its traditions. When a nation forgets its ancestral knowledge, it slowly imports its identity from elsewhere. Colonization was not only about land, it was also about replacing memory. Many societies lost confidence in themselves the moment they were taught to distrust their own heritage. A civilization cannot fully rise while ashamed of its own ancestors. The future of Africa may depend on balancing ancient wisdom with modern innovation. Indigenous knowledge was Africa's first university. A people who abandon their cultural foundations risk becoming strangers in their own land. Spirituality should empower a people to build, create, heal, and unite, not weaken their sense of identity. Africa's rebirth begins when its people rediscover the value of their own knowledge systems. Not every tradition should be worshipped, but no civilization should erase its own memory. The strongest nations modernize without losing their cultural soul. Ancestral wisdom and scientific progress do not have to be enemies. The path forward is not blind rejection or blind acceptance, but conscious understanding. Cultural amnesia is one of the quietest forms of destruction. Africa does not need to become another civilization to become powerful. When people study only foreign greatness, they forget the greatness within themselves. A tree without roots cannot survive the storm. True liberation begins in the mind, the culture, and the spirit of a people.
The African Renaissance Oath. We shall not inherit weakness. We shall inherit responsibility. We shall think clearly, work honestly, build fearlessly, and rise collectively. We shall create more than we destroy. We shall unite more than we divide. We shall leave future generations stronger than we found them. Our minds shall be disciplined. Our hands shall be productive. Our hearts shall remain human. And our legacy shall outlive us.
Africa's cultural, spiritual, and intellectual history is incredibly deep and complex. One of the most powerful ways to explore this subject is not through attacking entire religions, but through examining how identity, power, colonization, economics, education, and belief systems interact across generations. The greatest conquest is achieved when a people abandon themselves willingly. A civilization collapses the moment it believes all wisdom comes from outside itself. Mental liberation is the foundation of economic liberation. Africa imported many systems, but often exported its confidence in the process. The ancestors built societies aligned with land, community, nature, rhythm, and responsibility. No people can dominate the future while disconnected from their historical consciousness. Dependency begins first in the mind before it appears in the economy. The most dangerous prison is inherited inferiority. Many nations were conquered not only by weapons, but by psychological replacement. A people taught to reject their roots will eventually consume the identity of others. The destruction of indigenous systems created generations searching for themselves in foreign mirrors. Civilizations rise when they preserve memory while mastering innovation. The wisdom of the ancestors was not primitive. It was adapted to survival, balance, and continuity. A nation without cultural confidence becomes a marketplace for external influence. Africa's rebirth requires intellectual sovereignty as much as economic sovereignty. The future cannot be built by people who are disconnected from their own foundation. Ancestral knowledge was Africa's original technology. Every civilization protects its mythology, symbols, language, and identity because culture is infrastructure. A people who lose their story eventually lose direction. Cultural fragmentation weakens collective ambition. The strongest societies study the world without abandoning themselves. True development is not imitation, it is evolution rooted in identity. When identity becomes imported, purpose becomes unstable. The next African Renaissance will be built by creators, thingineers, healers, and visionaries who understand both tradition and the future. The ancestors left principles, not chains. Africa's challenge is not choosing between past and future. It is learning how to merge wisdom with progress. A civilization that forgets its indigenous science becomes dependent on external systems. Self-knowledge is national power. The most valuable resource in Africa is not beneath the soil, but within the minds of its people. No continent can fully rise while constantly seeking validation from outside itself.
Before colonization captured the land, it first targeted the mind. The greatest resource stolen from Africa was not gold, but confidence. A people disconnected from their ancestral memory become vulnerable to every external influence. Africa's renaissance will not come from imitation, but from rediscovery and reinvention. The ancestors understood community wealth long before modern economics gave it a name. Civilizations survive when they preserve their identity while adapting to the future. The strongest nations are rooted deeply enough to grow globally. Mental slavery survives long after physical chains are removed. A society taught to reject its origins slowly loses the blueprint for its future. The destruction of culture creates generations searching for belonging in borrowed systems. The next African empire may be built with technology, but its spirit must remain African. A continent rich in minerals but poor in self-belief will always struggle to control its destiny. Ancestral wisdom was not backward, it was survival refined over centuries. Africa's future engineers, scientists, artists, and healers must learn to value both innovation and heritage. Every civilization protects its language because language carries memory. When cultural pride disappears, dependency expands. No people can rise economically while remaining psychologically conquered. The ancestors left principles of discipline, balance, courage, responsibility, and unity. Africa does not need to become another civilization to become powerful. The future belongs to societies that can merge tradition with invention. The world respects nations that respect themselves first. Cultural confidence is a form of national defense. A people without historical awareness are easier to manipulate. The rebirth of Africa begins in the classroom, the household, the studio, the laboratory, and the mind. Africa's next revolution may not begin with politics, but with consciousness. The continent must stop exporting raw potential and start engineering finished greatness. The ancestors mastered sustainability before the modern world created the word. True liberation is intellectual, economic, spiritual, and technological. A generation that rediscovers itself can redesign the future. The African Renaissance will be built by creators who understand both roots and rockets. Nations rise when citizens stop waiting for rescue and start building systems. The mind is the first territory every civilization must protect. A people who control their narrative control their direction. Africa's greatest awakening will happen when its youth realize their value is not imported. The future African superpower will be built through discipline, ownership, innovation, and cultural clarity. Civilizations become immortal when knowledge is passed from generation to generation. The ancestors planted identity. The next generation must build destiny. The rebirth of a continent starts when its people stop doubting themselves. Africa's greatest untapped technology is the collective genius of its people. A continent that remembers who it is cannot be permanently controlled.